On episode 26 of Chit Chat, we talk about a few of this year's games that haven't quite lived up to our expectations. Is it us or is it the games? Maybe it's a little bit of both. Well, it's not all doom and gloom. We also run down our recent playlist. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 26, and if you can't tell already, there's something very different about the panel. Gary looks very different tonight. No, we got Ryan, but we've got Kira here today. Welcome, Kira. She's going to be sitting in to talk about, if you watched last time, we talked about games that kind of were pleasant surprises so far in 2018. This week, we're going to be talking about games that may not have landed with us terribly well. That doesn't necessarily mean the games are bad. It's just that they're not our kind of games necessarily.
Or that we had a bad experience with. Right?
Or that we had a bad experience with. That's a good point. So anyway, we'll get into that. But before we do, as always, we have a winner for last week's contest.
Yes, Spencer Pickett, you won Dragoon. And this week we're giving away Maiden's Quest from WizKids. So
right there.
Make a comment below. You'll be entered to win. That's
All right.
it. Let's go.
So who wants to start? We are going to talk about what we've been playing too, but we're going to start with those games that haven't quite landed
Games
with us.
that haven't landed. I've got
in 2018.
I've got one. Kalimala, which is a Euro game. It came out in the States this year.
True.
I played it this year, right when it first came out, and I really loved it on paper. Even kind of enjoyed playing it, but kind of based on like the setup that we had for the game, like things weren't kind of flowing right, things weren't really working, and the next thing I knew, the game was just kind of over. So it was like a really short. I never really felt like I got to build anything. I never really forgot. Like it felt like I was even close to winning or like taking advantage of the satisfying aspects of the game.
Is the big variable that you lose the games that you don't?
No. You know, and this comes up a lot. Like people are like, well, if you win a game, you're more likely to like it. I don't know that that's even necessarily true.
I think generally
it might
with
have a lot
human
to do
beings
with
it
it.
is.
Yeah,
I think the only time that would be the case is if someone won and just absolutely clobbered everyone and they could recognize themselves.
Like it was very unsatisfying.
This was maybe broken. I mean, not that Kalimala is that. I mean, I wouldn't
I
necessarily
actually don't remember
disagree
if
with
I
you.
won or not. It just, the experience felt very short from where I wanted it to be, and a lot of the things that on paper sounded really cool, like I never actually got to do those things in the game. So like I never really got to experience those. So I was just kind of left feeling a little
It's a really dry theme.
dulled out.
I would say that. It's super dry. You have to be ready for a Euro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost, it's not like it has a lot of innovative things in it. It feels like it does a lot of things that are very similar to other Euros, except for that one section where you're placing your pieces in between different spots and taking those actions and they stack.
Yeah.
That was unique. I had a decent experience with it, but yeah, I wouldn't say I'm getting it to the table a ton.
Yeah.
You have anything else?
I do have a couple that I really just like I said, that just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
So another one is Eastern Wonders, Century Eastern Wonders, which I don't know. I guess I don't know really what I expected, but I mean, I love the designer and I like Century, but when I played Eastern Wonders, it just felt like it was missing something for me. And what I've heard is that if you add in base Century mode into Eastern Wonders, you get like kind of a new experience. And I think that's kind of what I was looking for. But it's a great gateway introduction game. But personally, I'm well past gateway game.
I like the game fine. I'd say if I had to theorize, one of the reasons you're not a big fan is, I mean, it's pick up and deliver, at least the new one for the most part, and that you're not a huge fan of
No,
that
I
to
don't like
begin
pick
with.
up and deliver for sure.
And I'm not the biggest fan of that either, but I like both of those games from the standpoint that they are good entry-level games. They're not the kind of games that this group is going to sit around and play, but nor are we going to play some of our favorite games of the year. Like I love Space Base, but we don't get it out that often either.
Like I would use Eastern Wonders to get like maybe my family, friends that don't game a lot. Like it's a perfect game for that group. So it probably will see some play for me.
I would challenge that. I would say you wouldn't do that. I would say you would get other games like Azul out to teach you and play with your family. Games that you enjoy more than
Depends on
Azul is always
the mechanic.
Like right.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to teach about pick up and deliver, and there's some engine building and
I would say
resource
for
management.
pick up and deliver, it was one of the one of those types of games that I like the most.
Yeah.
Again, I would mostly agree though.
Yeah.
Kira, do you have any, or do you love everything like me?
I generally do, surprisingly, and I was thinking through this, and a lot of the games I played just due to time were released last year or earlier, so I had to really think about it. But there was one at Gen Con that everybody was really excited about, and I've seen a lot of people playing it since then. It was Railroad Inc.
Oh.
Did not, just just totally did not interest me.
And you played it at Gen Con?
I did play it at Gen Con, yeah.
Which one did you play, the blue or the red?
The blue.
Did you play with any of the expansion stuff, or just like the base? Here's how to play the game.
We just played the base.
Okay.
Just played the base. And I don't know what it was exactly, but I just honestly, I wasn't into it. And when we got to scoring by that point, I felt myself just going, I lost, you know, like I can tell I lost. There were some confusing things throughout. It might have been the way the people I was playing with, in all fairness, but I don't think it was. But I'd give it another shot in the future, but overall it just, especially I was a little overly excited for it too. I was like, oh cool, another roll and write. Yep. Those are obviously very popular again. And it's,
roll and writes are getting to be almost like a dangerous genre right now because there's so many of them, and there's so many that are like on fire with a lot of people that you got to really stand up.
Did you ever play Kokoro?
Yes.
Which is kind of the same,
similar,
like build paths. Roll
and I do like that. It's cute. You know, that one is fun for me because I can play it on the road and have somebody at home to play it with too. We just kind of do it on FaceTime or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know why this one didn't land with me, but it didn't.
It's interesting. I think we both got copies of Reloading too. I don't think either one of us have played it since. Like, there's so many just fantastic roll and writes that it's hard to be good. Like, you have to be great at this point.
I think that's
especially this
year.
You just
said it. I think there's no room for even good games right now. Like, because there are so many great games, but I think being just good is not even enough.
Yeah, there's a bunch that I've played only once or twice in that genre, and it's kind of like, well, I'd rather, if I'm going to go pick up one that I've already played, I'd rather go pick up Welcome to and see how that one plays again, because I enjoyed that. But I wouldn't. It's not on my list to go grab it and see like, oh, let's see if this changes anything. Yeah,
I like the roll and writes that have offered slightly different experiences than Avenue or Kokoro, where those and Railroad Inc., you're kind of doing that build a path thing, whereas a lot of these others have nothing to do with building paths, right? Yeah. It's a different sort of puzzle that you're figuring out, and I don't know, those have been a little bit more interesting to me than that. So I've got a couple, but I'll start with this one. And it's the House of Danger Choose Your Own Adventure. And I'll admit right now, I haven't played through the whole thing. I played through the first two chapters. Right. So it's like the grounds and the mansion. And I was super excited about this because I grew up, I mean, you probably did too.
Yeah, I even did too.
Those books were like brand new when I was a kid. Once upon a time I had a ton of those books. So I was really looking forward to that. I thought it was a brilliant license that they picked up. And with all these narrative games coming out lately, I thought, whoa, this is like, what a perfect slam dunk. And they got it into Target. There was a lot of anticipation. Went out and grabbed it. Read through the rules, and it was when I read through the rules that I started to kind of wonder whether or not it was going to hold enough compared to some of the other games. And it mostly felt like I was just reading a Choose Your Own Adventure book. It just broken out on the cards. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't. My expectations were way up here, and it didn't do a lot of the things that we've seen a lot of those other narrative games doing lately, where there's a good amount of narrative and there's a good amount of game.
Especially when you compare it to Legacy of Dragonhold, which I don't think you've played yet, but I completed it with no problem. Like, I didn't die once, I didn't have any issues at all to get through the game. So again, it just felt like a story that I could have just read the back of the cards.
Yeah, I just wanted more game.
Yes.
Well, and I think too, when you have something like that you have an expectation for, it almost sets it up for.
Yeah, I'm not saying it could be. A lot of people could like that game. Yeah. My expectations were real. I mean,
because you had.
I don't generally like hear that something's at Target and drop what I'm doing, get in my car and go get it, and that's what I did to get that.
Yeah.
And so I built it up pretty big in my mind.
I've had a lot of disappointments. I'll just speak frankly here. So I have a laundry list of things that I feel like, to me, are personal disappointments. I'll start with one that I was super excited for. My number 2 game most anticipated this year was Charterstone. And that game fell extremely flat. We played through the entire game, so I've had the complete game under my belt. I know everything that happens in the game. And there was just a lot of things that you were doing just to do them, especially the peeling off of the cards, which in theory is a really neat legacy aspect where you're peeling off these cards, you're putting them onto your board, and you're putting these cards back into the deck. But I don't think they thought about it through, because once you peel these off, you're bending the cards. So the stack of cards, once they're used, is all these bent up cards that you're recycling and reusing, which just wasn't fun. I didn't find the mechanics very fun. I didn't find the story super enjoyable. It felt really flat for me.
Yeah, I haven't played it based on what you'd said in the past.
Another one I'll mention is Keyforge. And I know this is early, and it's not out yet.
Ooh, that is early.
And you had mentioned that you liked the game. I struggled to find the relevancy for this game in the market. I love the idea that it's all unique. I love the idea that people that aren't into deck builders or CCGs or LCGs can compete at a base level across the board. But I strongly feel like people will play this game once or twice. They may see a slight competitive environment, and then it's going to go under the wayside, because a lot of these people that want to play these style of games want to deck build.
Yeah.
They want to build their own decks. They want to have onus over their decks. They want to experiment and try different factions together. In this game, I just don't know how it's going to do it. On the flip side, I'm super excited for Discovery, which is the other unique game they have coming out. So I like what they're trying to do. I just don't know if Keyforge is going to have relevance to the market or the people, the consumers that are going to be.
I would agree. What do you think of the game, though?
I think the game is okay. I mean, at base level, it's a fine game. But again, I want to get in there and dig into the meat of the game. I want to take faction cards and use them to be able to work with other cards. Like, for instance, you and I talked. I have a deck that they gave to me that has two cards in it that key off artifacts in the game. I have one artifact in my whole deck. Like, those cards are dead cards for the most part. If anyone who's played a CCG or an LCG, any competitive Magic type of game, you're going to know that you would never put two cards that key off of one other card in your deck. It's just, there's no relevance to it.
Yeah, I had the same
I worry about
with
that.
Keyforge.
I don't know how they're going to balance that.
I totally agree with you that with the traditional Magic market, it might be a letdown, if you will. And I don't know that they're targeting that. But the way I look at that, and of course this is sort of the positive spin on it, is I like the idea of taking a deck like that and working with what you have. So you have this deck, you don't have perfect control over it. And from what I hear, and again, I'm not in this sort of segment of the market, but the people who are playing serious Magic, I mean, most of them just net deck anyway. So they're not really, no one's building their decks anymore. Everyone's just finding out what the best deck is and doing that. So I kind of like it that it's like more tactical than strategic. So here's your situation, go. See how, learn your deck and look at a deck like what you have and say, okay, I know that I have the two artifacts, so I need to know that one card's not going to fire off. Like I
agree. I mean, I think net decking is a problem, but I also think that the best player who net decks is going to win. Like, someone who plays their deck over and over and has skill in playing their deck is going to win no matter what. So I don't see that as a giant problem. Obviously, Magic continues to thrive, so it's not a problem in that atmosphere at all.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point, and Keyforge was on my list too. You even just mentioned it, the net decking. Because I remember very vividly when I was first getting into Magic, and I took my little cobbled together deck to Friday Night Magic, and I didn't really have a great concept of what a good deck was. And one of my first opponents was a guy that net decked, and he said his deck cost somewhere like around $400, and just smoked me, just destroyed me out of the water. And I think I'll never forget how like unsatisfying and like upsetting that was. And I think there are decks in Keyforge when you sit down and it feels like I'm in that same position. Your deck just smokes me because it's so much better than mine.
We saw that at Grand Con too. We saw one guy have 9 cards on the table and one card destroyed everything. I mean, just because he had that card in his deck. I mean,
it can be a crazy swingy game for sure. I think, and we'll see how it's embraced. Like I said, I don't know that it'll be embraced by that one side of the market, but maybe they're banking on the fact that those guys who went on Friday Night Magic with that deck and got obliterated might be more inclined to play something like this than they are that. I just simply would never have the time or want to spend the time to build a deck. Like, give me a deck. And in fact, whenever I played Magic, I played with a deck you bought, like a starter deck against a starter deck.
Do you guys feel like throughout the year you're more disappointed than you are surprised about games now, just because of the sheer amount of games? Like, how many games we touch a year is probably around 500 to 600 new games that we'll play or experience or demo of some sort. It feels like there's so many games that I'm more disappointed by the games that I played than I am surprised by the games I didn't know about.
Well, it is rare that I'm surprised by a game that I didn't know about. But I would say, and this is going to get into semantics here, but in terms of the term disappointment, to me that always implies that I had some expectation. So I don't feel that happens a lot. I mean, it happens, but I don't feel like there's this huge expectation except for the House of Danger. I don't have that experience a lot. Do I play a lot of games that I'm like, okay, you sure? Yeah. But I don't characterize that as disappointment. Okay.
Well, I think,
but yeah, with as many games as there are, yeah, sure, that's going to be the case. Especially when there's so many, even if the game's not bad, but there's so many options. Like you challenged earlier, Ryan, like would you play this or would you bring out Azul? There's a lot of other options that you can just, you know what, let's play this again. We know we have fun with that. Right. Let's do that. And I've been doing that a lot lately. Yeah. Playing even older games.
Yes. I've been playing older stuff in my...
Which is because you get, and I'm all about the cult of the new, and I think a lot of people watching are, but I'll tell you, it's starting to get a little burnout when it's like you're chasing all these new games, and then when you come to the realization that 75% of them are not good. So you're trying to play every single new game that comes out, and like maybe 2 or 3 of them are going to be games that you really love, but you just spent hours and hours of your life playing games that you didn't like.
You got to go through that though, right?
Right, you got to go through that to find. But
no, but I mean, even to find the really good ones. I mean, one of the games I played recently was Pulsar, and I remember last year we had that for like 2 months sitting here down in the basement here, and didn't play it. And then we played it like right before the end of the year, right? And it made a couple of our lists, but it was just barely. Had we not played it, it would not have made our list. And I look back at Pulsar, it would have been much higher on my list for 2017, my top 10.
What about you, Carrie? How many years have you been playing games? You're fairly new to the
about
industry.
5 years.
Okay.
5-6 years now. So.
What's your perspective of?
I mean, I have more games than I've opened,
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. There's just a bunch because of going to all the cons and getting that hype and seeing things that I'd really like, and I'm terrible at picking up games that are pretty. I'm like, ooh, shiny, I want that. But and then they get a lot of hype, and then I get them to the table finally after time. Like, oh, we're finally getting this on the table, and I mean, I can think of a couple. There was one that I literally was kind of just trying hard to get in on a demo of it for like 2 years at a HoosierCon here in Indy, and finally sat down to play it. Somebody let me borrow it, and it was just such a massive disappointment. And so that's what I'm finding is that I'm just kind of resetting my expectations a little bit on some of the games that were hyped when I got them, and just like, okay, well, just forget about that. And then honestly, just some stuff just isn't getting opened because I hear other people saying things about it over time. I mean, Charterstone, you're not the only person I've heard say that about it. And so it was one that I really wanted to get, and it fell off my list. I'm glad it wasn't one of the ones I picked up, just because I know it would just continue to sit. So I don't know. I think I do go back to a lot of the same games more than I'll open up something new these days, just because I don't want to spend the time to learn the game only to find that, no one's going to play it with me if I do like it, or, oh, dang, I guess this is going in the gift pile or donation pile.
That is one thing that board games have going against them compared to other types of entertainment is you have to invest all that time to learn it, read it, teach
like a movie, right?
And then you're like, you go to a movie, you can kind of like get out of the movie, and after a couple hours, you're like, okay, whatever, it's behind us. But that was a lot of time. Like a game might take 2 hours plus the first time to play it, not to mention the 3 hours of learning it and setting it up and everything. So that can be disappointing.
I think the hype train is you mentioned the hype train is very dangerous. Like, and let's all be honest with ourselves. If you go to BGG and you look at the hotness, how many of those games are actually even out? So nobody knows if these games are good or not, yet they're number 1, number 2 on the hotness. Everyone's talking about them. So it's like, sure, it's easy to get really caught up in that. Like, oh, this game must be amazing because everyone's talking about it. But you have to stop and think none of those people have played it. So none of those people are giving really like valid critiques about the game. They're just like, this looks cool. I like the theme. I like the artwork. I like the designer. But there's 50-50 chance that game is going to be awful and you're going to be incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, I generally don't buy into the hype necessarily, particularly like the hotness on BGG feels more and more like it is this today and it's that tomorrow. Like I'm not cynical or skeptical of the games, but I definitely have a reserved attitude. But until I play it, or until I see it played. I mean, that's another thing is seeing it actually played through for a round, I can kind of get a sense like, okay, I can see the satisfaction here and the enjoyment that people can get from it.
I mean, the hotness can be influenced by a lot of marketing dollars, too.
A lot of things.
Games played. I think we've dwelled enough on disappointments. What about if we? I'll start with games played. We just got back from Grand Con. We got to play the final version of the Estates from Capstone.
Oh yeah, you love
so
that.
good. That game is mean. She was mean to me the entire time. It's a fantastic auction bidding game. Very easy to teach and learn, and a lot of different dynamics that are going to change the gameplay.
So much,
from one game
ton
to the
of
next.
depth. I was surprised by how much depth
what it is.
I haven't shut up about it since I've been home. I've told a lot of people about it. Yeah, I had a great time playing that game.
It's super simple. We also got to play The Return to Dark Tower. I believe it's the right name for it.
Yeah, you guys got to.
Very early, so I'm not going to say anything about it, and then we got to play it, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool, right?
We played it.
But the big games that we've been playing, we've been going through Time Stories. We just finished Prophecy of Dragons and Under the Mask. Both are really cool. Prophecy of Dragons was okay. It had some weird story stuff. Under the Mask was a lot better. It had some cool elements too, which I can't spoil. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been playing.
So I just mentioned I played Pulsar, but I'm going to talk about it again for a second. When we were at Grand Con. I think it was Saturday evening after we did our panel. Alicia and I were like, let's play a game. And I was walking around like I do at conventions, nosing in on people who are playing and just kind of like saying, hey, do you like games? And there was these people that were playing, I can't remember both of their names, Micah and his wife, and they had just taken the day away from their kids to come to Grand Con. It wasn't very far from that for them. But they were sitting there playing Altiplano, in the middle of Altiplano, while he was reading the rules for Council of Four. And I was like, that's a lot you've got going on there. And then we just started talking, and he said, yeah, you invited us to play a game. I said, well, we're looking for a game in the library here, so we picked up Pulsar. I'd asked them if they played, they hadn't. I said, okay, we're playing Pulsar. That game is so good. It really is probably going to find its way into my top 10, probably, of all time. I love that game. I've said before, it reminds me of Castles of Burgundy in many respects. It's like almost like if they did a Castles of Burgundy 2.0, it would be somewhere in the range of what Pulsar ends up being. So I played that, and I think I mentioned this last week too, or last time, played Cryptid more. Okay. Like I always do. One of my favorite games right now is Cryptid, and I took it to Grand Con and would play it with anyone we could. So we sat down and played that with actually Brian Lenz of Grand Con and Mandy from Dice Tower. And had a pretty good time.
Did they like it?
They did.
I think Mandy's played it before.
She had. We didn't play the advanced. I will say, that advanced game, I've played that again since. That is, you've got to be prepared for that.
It's challenging.
It is challenging, and I got to tell you, just the fact that it uses those clues that have the not here, it starts these double negatives in your head that just like, wait a minute, I don't know what to say to your question, whether it's a yes or no. So it can open itself up to a lot of mistakes, and a mistake in that game does kind of ruin the experience. Someone like third of the way through the game or further says, those are actually yeses.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like you may as well start over.
I'm pretty sure that I did that.
Did you?
When we played, I
wasn't going to throw you under the bus,
it's okay. It's okay.
But I played that, and we've been continuing to play Near and Far. And in fact, we just got Amber Mines this week. We are going to be on our, I think, the third or fourth map now.
Cool.
And we're going to incorporate the Amber Mines into that from now on.
Cool.
I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been playing, we just started in my Arkham Horror group, we just started The Forgotten Age, which is the newest one. I will reserve any comment on that because it was a very rough first scenario.
You mean difficult?
Yes.
Okay.
Surprisingly difficult even for Arkham, in my opinion. We all were kind of like, holy cow, this was a little brutal. It would be an understatement almost. It was difficult, but still fun. I like Arkham, and that's part of the fun of it. So we'll see how the next one goes. Just started playing Dice Throne Season 1.
Oh, yeah.
In preparation, got it as a gift for my husband, and so that we can play it, and he can get ready for Season 2. He's really big into the dice games. And surprisingly, like everybody we've introduced it to really enjoys it. And then, I don't know, what else? I guess Tiny Epic Zombies, since that just showed up. you guys know this. I'm very obsessed with the whole Tiny Epic thing because I have a lot of entry gateway friends that I play with, and so it's something they're always games I can get out. I enjoy them as well quite a bit, and they're very easy for me to teach. I'm not the best at teaching games, so it's nice to have something that's very easy to teach and for people to pick up. So Zombies was good, and then of course I stole your copy of Tiny Epic Mechs, and I've been playing that a lot. I'm kind of obsessed with it, actually. I like it a lot.
Are you better at teaching games or being taught?
Neither.
You know, I was going to see if you were being honest.
You just named her 2 weakest.
She's being taught a game. Terrible. She's like, I'll be on my phone. Just let me know when we're starting.
I have to play the game to learn it. So,
that's all right.
Yeah.
I know other people like that.
What are you playing?
Well, like you said, it was Grand Con last weekend, which means we got the big convention game of Time's Up, which is always a highlight of a convention for me. Besides that, I really didn't get to play a lot of Grand Con other than like a lot of prototypes. Like I saw a lot of games that were coming up. I did get the chance to play Hail Hydra again. Which
better experience, right?
I did have a much better experience. And I'm realizing that Hail Hydra might not be a perfect game, but it's very group dependent. The game itself doesn't give you a lot of tools to use to make a deduction, whereas like similar games like Secret Hitler or Werewolf, there are a lot of tools built into the mechanics that help you deduce. Whereas Hail Hydra is all about reading the people at the table. So if you've got a bunch of people at the table that are very into that and very active and slinging accusations, it's just a way more fun experience. And so,
yeah, I mean that kind of goes. Do you feel that goes hand in hand with just about every social deduction game? I've seen games of
mostly.
I've seen games of Don't Mess with Cthulhu ruined, which we all love, by generally it's new players who aren't sure what they're supposed to be doing, and they start lying, and everyone at the table who's familiar with the game go, "Why are you lying? Like." You shouldn't be lying if you're not a cultist.
That in itself is a tell, I think.
But yet the game itself still gives you tools to like uncover the deduction. Like, you get to look at their cards, and I'd say like Deception, Murder in Hong Kong is a great one that doesn't really require you to read people so much as to read the mechanics of the table. I mean, we did get to play. Was it Keyforge? Ceylon?
Oh, Ceylon.
That
we played at Grand Con. That was, the T game.
That was
I liked it.
So I was glad to finally get to play that.
You taught it, right?
I taught it. I played it as well,
Not super what I expected, actually, but I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it was not like I wasn't really, I had no idea what to expect, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I want to get a play on that.
Okay. But it was very interesting for a game about growing and harvesting tea.
Best one this year, right?
I think it might, we have 2 tea games. We had Tea Dragon,
I will have to say, Tea Dragon Society is pretty good. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but I did play that a couple weeks ago, and that was hilarious. Getting the British accents out there. Anyway, cool. Well, that's it for this week of Chit Chat. Hopefully we weren't too much of a downer for the first half, and you stuck with us so we can get enthusiastic about these games we've been playing. But as always, comment below, again, if you want to get a chance to win Maiden's Quest. And check us out on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and all the social media we do. We'll check you guys out next time. Well, that's another episode of Chit Chat in the Bag. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out another one, there's probably one right over here in the bottom left-hand corner. Or probably your right-hand corner. Whatever corner, we have something to click on. So click on one of these things, and good things will happen.